In today's lesson, we're going to see different ways that we can zoom into our clips while maintaining the quality of our videos. So let's get started. I have 4 different things right here. 2 of them are videos and the other 2 are images. For the clips, I have really high quality ones. They are both 4K. One of my images is 1920 by 1491, and the other one is slightly larger. So as you can see, we don't have identical footage. And in today's lesson, we're going to see the best way that we can zoom into these different footage without losing their quality. Let's pull all of these guys into the timeline. So as you can see, the larger videos are perfectly fit, but the images are just not quite fit. And other times they are way too zoomed in without me doing so. The first thing that you can do is to set one scale for one of your footage and then copy it onto the other ones. For example, I will be on the first clip, select it, go to Effect Controls. Using scale, I will just bring it in by like 120. Then copy the clip, Command C, Control C, select the rest of the videos, right click, paste attributes. So this is going to paste the stuff that you select here. For me, that's motion. We didn't really do anything in time remapping or opacity. Just make sure that motion is turned on. Motion counts for position, scale, rotation. So if you're doing any of those, you would want this guy to be turned on. Once you hit OK, now the rest of the videos are scaled in by 120. If I go in each one, 120, 120, and 120. So if you have a large selection of clips, you don't need to scale them in one by one, but instead do your scaling on one video and then paste the attributes on the others. The next method is for situations like this, where some of our clips are surrounded by black bars. You can see this guy is falling on the other hand. It's a bit too large. So when I scale it out, you can see that it's actually quite taller than what we were seeing. So we're going to select the video, right click. So down here we have scale to frame size and set to frame size. There is a big difference between these two. I will tell you that in a minute. But for now, just for it to fit my frame, I'm going to choose the set to frame size option. So now I'm not getting those black bars, and I didn't even have to scale it up myself, try to figure out where I need to stop. I just did one click and my image is perfectly fit for my frame. Do the same thing for the other one, right click, set to frame size. Now it doesn't matter if your clip is too big or too small for your sequence. As long as you do this one click, Premiere Pro will determine if it needs to remove from the default 100 scale or add to the default 100 scale. You can also create keyframes for these zoom movements. So right over here I have 2 birds. I want to slowly zoom in onto this bird and then zoom out towards this second bird. So we already know how to create keyframes. I'm going to extend this window right here. Then go to the beginning of your video. Make a default keyframe right here. One for scale and one for position. Go onto the frame that you want to zoom in. Using scale, I'm going to zoom in towards the bird and then position to just move the canvas to where it needs to be. Now, because my video is 4K, zooming in does not cause a lot of resolution problems. And when I play this back, I can still get a sharp result for my bird. Around here, I'm going to make another keyframe for both of these options. Then zoom out to the default 100% and just move the video back towards the second bird, which is kind of hidden. I'm going to zoom in again. There we go. There is my second bird. And now we have these keyframes set on the video. The problem is that the movement is really static and it's kind of looking stiff and not ideal. So what we want to do is to create keyframe animations instead of leaving them to be linear keyframes. So grab the in keyframes, highlight them like this, hold down Shift and grab the other pair. Right click, temporal interpolation, and then choose the ease in animation. Then grab the rest of these guys and set them to ease out. So now we're going to get a movement, a smooth movement compared to what we had before. So let me just hit Command C and show you exactly what we did. When I open up the position and scale, you can see how stiff these turns are, just really sharp points going around. And when you're getting sharp points, you're kind of getting the exact same stiff movement that is shown in these lines. Now watch what happens when I grab all of these guys, right click, and let's say I'm going to make them Auto Bezier. This is just a random choice for now, but notice how there are a lot of curves now, which means that the movement will be a lot more smooth. Play this back, and you can see how the movement has changed, first of all, and we're not getting that stiff left and right movement we had before. Now for this type of keyframing, the Auto Bezier wasn't the best option. So go back to what we had before. The graph looks completely different and my movements are just a lot more smooth. This can be helpful for these type of slow zoom animations. So what if you want to zoom in and out into your subject but would like some motion blur involved? I'm going to zoom in onto the wolf's head and introduce some motion blur. Now instead of using the same motion properties right here, I will be adding the transform effect, which basically does the same, but it gives us a few more options. Drag this onto your wolf clip, go to Effect Controls. Down here you can see we still have position, scale, rotation, opacity, and all that. But now we have the shutter angle option, which is something we didn't have right above. So let's go to this frame where the wolf is looking away. Select the position property. You will see this blue thing, which you can just drag around. Set this onto the wolf's head. And now whatever movements we do, we will be doing it based off the wolf's head. Make a keyframe for position, then go in onto where you want to zoom in towards the wolf's head. Scale right in. We also need to create anchor point keyframes. So go back to the first keyframe, make a keyframe for anchor point. Going forward, I can just pull this guy back to the wolf's head. And the position is fine. Make a keyframe. Now I have a movement that goes with the wolf's head. You can see that the video itself is slowly shifting towards the side just as the wolf's head is moving. Now to avoid the black bars, we're just going to zoom in using scale. Make a keyframe, go to the last frame, and here we have some room, so I can just zoom out to 119. Now I can just animate the keyframes just as we did previously. Play this back and I have a really nice head lock animation. Now to add motion blur. So around here I'm going to do a really fast animation. So let's kind of reset the keyframes. And then I'm going to add a really crazy rotation keyframe just for a dramatic animation that I can use to introduce some motion blur. Add your rotation keyframe. Here we can kind of like turn it around like this. Now when I play this back, you can see the motion blur that is around the wolf. That is not there when the keyframes finish. So here we have motion blur when the transition is happening, and the closer you bring these together, the more motion blur you will have. So here we have blur, here we don't. And the motion blur will be based on your anchor point. Currently, I believe we have it set on this point. Let me just change it to the wolf's head so we don't get any blur. And now I'm going to get something like this. Motion blur is going to add a really nice touch to your transitions. It's almost an essential thing in sport videos or videos where there is a lot of action. So using the transform effect, we can introduce motion blur to our videos. Now let's talk about the difference between scale to frame size and set to frame size. So if you recall, we had two options when we wanted to scale this to the frame size. Let's say this is my original video. It's, as we said, a 4K clip, and I just want to scale this up so I don't get these black bars. Of course, I can grab the scale right here, but I wouldn't know exactly where to stop, and just figuring out how much I need is going to be time consuming. So when you right click, go down, we have two options for this issue: scale to frame size and set to frame size. I'm going to pull these guys away and duplicate my clip by holding down Option or Alt. If you're not getting a snapping effect on your timeline, it may be because you hit S by accident. So when I move this around, you can see it jumps to the end of the previous clip. But if I hit S on my keyboard, I'm going to disable that snapping option. So make sure you have snapping turned on so you can put it right after your first clip. So I will use the two images that we had from before. One of them is too small. Let me set this back to the default number. And the second one was too big. On this one, I'm going to right click, scale to frame size. And on the second one, I'm going to right click, set to frame size. Now, both of these options did help me with my issue, but there is a big difference. So in the second option, set to frame size, I got a value less than 100 for scale. For the scale to frame size, I did not get a changed value, even though this guy was a lot smaller than the frame size. So what happened and why do they look different? So when it comes to scale, which is the first option that we had, apart from fitting the video into the frame size, we actually rasterized the footage, meaning that the original quality of this footage was reduced to the sequence's dimension. So if I had a sequence that was HD, 1920 by 1080, and my image or video was like 4K, 8K, scaling to frame size is going to reduce the quality of my video to HD. So it's going to rasterize the 4K clip and turn it into HD. And that's not a good thing because let's say after I have scaled down my video, I want to continue zooming in, maybe make some keyframes, something like this. But because Premiere Pro rasterized this image, I will be getting a blurry result. That is because my footage is no longer 4K and is now HD. So that's why scaling to frame size isn't always good when you have high quality footage. But in the second option, set to frame size, it's not going to rasterize the clip, and it's just as if we were using the scale ourselves. So I still have my 4K footage. The only difference is that the scale is no longer 100 and it's like 67. So this option is better when you have high quality clips because it does not get rasterized, and throughout the entire project, you will keep the original quality of your videos. So those were some tips regarding zooming into your footage inside Premiere Pro. Always remember to have high quality footage if you're looking to zoom in during your editing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and I will see you in the next one.